everybody on speaker view because that is the best way to see what I'm about to share on screen. I wanted to talk just a little bit about the boot camp itself before we go to today's program. This is, well, we're starting our second year of the retirement boot camp, and it was really designed to help people transition into retirement or to enjoy their retirement more, and provide social activities, financial information, health and wellness info, help with personal relationships, and self-identity and purpose. So those are sort of the 5 categories we're looking at. And I wanted to show you real quick how to access our information, everything we're doing in the boot camp. We live online at lplks.org/retirement, and this is where you can see all the upcoming programs that are, well, for the next 3 months anyway. I just wanted to point you to, we're going to load this. This is our Downsizers Club. We're going to meet on the first Thursday of each month and discuss a different topic. More about that later. We have a couple of weekly events. We have a coffee break online on Friday morning at 10, and then we play bingo and brain games at 4 p.m. on Tuesday afternoons. But our next special program is dessert and a movie night, and that is next Wednesday from 7 to 9 p.m. And it's sort of a movie discussion group. It's something we're trying out. So you bring your own dessert, of course, to the Zoom meeting and discuss a movie you will already have seen. And that movie is, it is The Little Traitor. And it's available on Canopy, which is a service offered by the library for free. We will have instructions on how to download that, but you do need a library card. So I wanted to mention that. And then the next boot camp program is, the one after that is the following week on Thursday the 17th at 5 o'clock, called Wine Around the World. And this will be a monthly event too. So you can join us on Zoom and discuss wines from various regions and parts of the world. And the first one will be Steve Wilson of City Wine Market, presenting wines from the Rhone Valley in France. So, and all of those, of course, you need to register for. If you would like, very quickly, if you'd like more information about just the Downsizers Club and our ongoing programs, we will be on the Facebook page. I know a lot of you don't have Facebook, and you know, for good reason, but we just thought this was the best place to have conversations and share resources as we go about downsizing our homes. So if you're on Facebook, you just go to the LPL Friends and Foundation page, and then you click on Groups, and then you click on Downsizers Club. And there you will see just all the information that we're going to share tonight and in future programs, as well as our followers sharing their resources. So I just really wanted to say that very quickly so that you knew where to find us. Share. So the Downsizing Club is a new project that kind of came to being after a program we did in June featuring David Eckert, who wrote a book on downsizing. But more importantly, it came from one of the members of our weekly bingo and coffee groups, Pat Lechtenberg, who's here in the crowd. You're muted now, Pat, but we'll talk later. I just wanted to give Pat credit for this idea because she was in a book club that spent a full year challenging each other to downsize. So every week they would talk about what they've gotten rid of. And I think the challenge was they had to get rid of one thing per week or one group of things per week. And they have all kinds of resources. And Pat, so this was really Pat's idea. We decided to break it down into months so that every month we're going to deal with a different topic in hopes that that will motivate everybody to, you know, get it done, because downsizing is something you can put off forever, really, especially if you don't have plans to move. And my husband and I are experiencing some of that ourselves. And, you know, we might move, we might not move, but in the meantime, we really need to clear out our junk. And so I think a lot of us here tonight have had the experience of doing that for our parents and know what a experience that can be. So we just hope that you'll get some tips here. We're talking about paper tonight. We have two experts with us who are going to help us figure out how to get rid of it, honestly, and what to keep. So our guests today, this afternoon, are Jerry Wade, and Jerry is a certified relocation and transition specialist. Her website is seniormoveservices.com, and that will be on our Facebook page and on our website as well. And then we also have Cindy Phillips, who is a senior move manager and professional organizer, and her website is sensiblesolutionsKC.com. And then a little later in the program, we're going to talk to Mary Burchell, who's the president of the library's Friends and Foundation Board, and she's going to speak on how to sell your books online for fun and profit, and also how to donate your books to the library. So that's something we always want to promote for our book sales. So we're going to start right off the bat with a couple of questions just in general for you, Jerry and Cindy. And then, as Kathleen said, if you all have any questions for me to ask them, just put them in the chat and I'll read them as we go along. But Jerry, I think it's good to start out by talking about the toll that it can take on people when they really haven't done this work and something happens to force them to deal with it, and kind of the benefits of trying to get ahead of it and this downsizing, decluttering in advance of when you're really kind of in a crisis.
Well, what happens is that people feel overwhelmed, and they feel overwhelmed even if they don't have multitudes of paper, because it's everything requires making a decision. Decisions drain energy, and the older you get, the less energy you have. And that's where we come in and help. And unfortunately, it costs money. We're not a free service. And if it spirals out of control, and it can, and it will, one of my clients a few years ago, it was floor to ceiling paper throughout his entire apartment. He had been evicted, which is what always happens. And we couldn't go through a lot. He wanted to go through all of the paper. He couldn't go through all of the paper. So a lot of it we just boxed up and sent to storage and got him into a new apartment. But this took months, and there was a lot that was thrown away. And the cost to him by the time we were done was about $17,000, which is an astronomical amount of money to have to pay for that kind of help. But, and now he's paying for 2 storage units that I'm sure that he's never going into them and dealing with it the way he said he was going to. And sometimes that's all we can do, is just to get it away from people, is just to box it up. Hopefully, more people are more willing to sit down and deal with it. My first tip is don't let it into the house to begin with.
Don't let it into the house from where?
Don't let the paper into the house.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so when the mail comes in, the first thing you do is throw out all of the junk mail. Don't give it any importance. If it's got your name, if it's a credit card offer, get it in the shredder, but don't let it start accumulating, because it can get out of control pretty quickly. And it's very difficult once it is out of control to get people to make decisions.
Yeah, so Cindy, I'm thinking about maybe 4 bags of papers I have in the garage that need to get to the shredder. And wondering, just when you go in and assess someone's situation, and how big does paper play into the actual work that you do and the cost to them, because they haven't taken time just to sort through, you know, the documents, not just the junk mail, but just all the stuff you save forever and ever.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of problems with clients thus far having a big paper problem. But I do know just from experience about how it stacks up. And I know for my own parents' situation, when my stepmother was hospitalized and subsequently passed away, there was just a big box of her mail and documents that my dad had to try to sort through, and that was pretty overwhelming for him to even deal with. But a lot of stuff can be shredded. The shred services local to Douglas County that we can get access to, they charge up to $119 for up to 300 pounds of documents. But that's if they came to your house to shred it.
Mm-hmm.
And do
yeah,
they shred it on site?
In order for them to shred it on site,
Mhm.
there are several companies that do it, but they it's more expensive to do that. If you can go to the free events, that's better. They'll shred it in front of you, and it's free.
Mhm.
The other option is to take things to a drop-off place, but then you're dropping it into a box, and it's secured, and it's safer, and it's less expensive. It's usually charged by the pound.
Mhm.
And so it won't cost as much to get rid of a smaller amount. But if you have a lot and you need the security of seeing it shredded in front of you, it is an option that's available.
And that brings up a good point. I want to show people, I'm sharing my screen. I hope you can see it. Yell if you can't. We will be adding to this list of resources provided by Jerry and Cindy, and then from some of our own research. We want to offer, you know, anyone that's in the Downsizers Club, and you've sent us your email address, we would like to offer this information to you as the year goes on, and that specifically will include where the shredding events are, because with COVID, you know, it's an issue, and these in-person shredding events have been canceled for the most part. A lot of our local banks will do them, where you actually go and you can see your documents being shredded, or they take it from your car. But as we found out recently, a lot of those have just sort of curtailed their events until the COVID thing gets sorted through. But we do have quite a few resources, including the ones Cindy just mentioned, and FedEx will do it. FedEx happens to have hours exclusively for people over 60. I think it's from 9 to 10 in the morning on a couple of days a week, and 10 to 11 on Saturday. But again, they use a third-party shredder, so you are taking your documents to be put into a locked box, and some people just aren't comfortable with that. So join the Downsizers Club, and we'll let you know any free events we hear about. So let's talk about, and I think, Jerry, let's start with you. Let's talk about how long to keep certain documents. And I would imagine when you assist families, you have to help them sort through, decide what to trash, what to shred, or recycle, shred, and keep. And so, because I'm not sure a lot of us are clear on that. I'm going to do this again here.
As far as taxes go, and that's the one that people are most concerned about, there's conflicting information. I looked at it today, and the IRS says if you have filed a return every year, reported all of your income, and done nothing fraudulent, then you can keep your records for 3 years and all your supporting documents. However, if you fail to report all of your income and it's over 25% of your gross income that's shown on the return, you need to keep your documents for 6 years. If you file a claim for loss from a worthless security, you need to keep those documents for 7 years. So, you know, what I always tell people ultimately is ask your accountant. I personally keep them for 3 years, and it's never been a problem. Other documents, you know, birth certificates, all of those you have to keep indefinitely. And I would just have that in a file. You know, it could be in a genealogy file or whatever, historical documents, but that's something that you would need to keep forever. Most things anymore, you can just, they're online. You don't need to keep the paperwork. It's just, I've gone from 3 file boxes over the years to 1, because most everything I have now is online, all my bank statements and my credit card statements, and there's no need to hang on to it.
Some of us don't trust that, though. I mean, I know the medical bills come to mind. That's, you know, most of us now have a portal of some kind where we can access all of our medical records, but some people just don't want to give up the paper, you know. So that's, I think the guideline was 1 year on that, on medical bills and records, especially for tax purposes. Right? Okay.
And I would think that for medical records, if you have ongoing medical conditions, you may want to keep those as long as you're undergoing treatment. Paper copies that you can carry with you, just because you can't always count on having access to an electronic record when you need it. So unless you're not undergoing a treatment for that anymore, and once all of the bills are paid and taken care of, I think it would just depend on the situation, but until it's resolved, I would hang on to them.
Okay, good. Well, we have a question from John Nalbandian in the audience. He asks, is shredding overrated? He says, I have been to recycling and solid waste landfill and have never, all caps, never seen anyone looking at any paper. Is that naive of John? Or, I mean, because I'm pretty trustworthy too. I don't think it would bother me to take it to a locked bin, but do you have any stories to share, either one of you, about that particular issue? Jerry?
Well, I don't know anyone who's experienced identity theft, but I know a lot of people are terrified of it. And that's what's driving, you know, the shredding business is that fear that someone is going to get a hold of your social security number. So, you know, some people, for my clients who want shredding, we make sure it gets shredded. If it's not important to them, it just goes into the dumpster.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And I would add that not every document requires shredding. If it's has your personal identifying information in it, your social security number, your birth date, those things together, things that are more secure, I would be concerned about. So that may whittle a pile pretty far down if you are only worrying about shredding things that are potentially secure issues.
So do you have a sorting system, Jerry? Like when you sit with a client and you say, okay, we're going to make a pile for this, this, and the other. How do you begin?
Well, we look at the documents and we keep the ones that they feel we need to keep, and we get them. I like to use it's a plastic file bin that you can get at Walmart or Staples, and I like to use the hanging file folders, and you know, we just go through it. It might be your social security, it might be your income tax, it might be medical bills, it might be insurance documents. Those are the big ones. Might be they're investments. And those are the things that we save. And just, you know, make folders for them, labeling them in a way that they'll know where to find them. There's no point in me calling it, you know, IRS file if they're looking for tax file. So
Right.
we need to make sure that we're all on the same page with what we're calling things.
Yeah. And then how do you deal with the other paper, the personal, not documents per se, but letters and oh, you know, souvenir, like clippings, and maybe you still have your kids' art projects, God forbid, from when they were little. But I mean, I have a file drawer right next to me that is probably half full of just miscellaneous, personal, nostalgic stuff that someone would, you know, have to go through were I not around.
Is this for me or for?
Yeah, go ahead, and then yes.
Okay, what I did with some of the art projects of my children, it was that I scanned them on my scanner and then made them into magnets. There's magnetic paper that you can buy, and that way I can enjoy seeing them, and I still do that. You know, that's one thing. There comes a point where your children are grown up and you can say, do you want these things? And they're going to say no. And then you just let them go, you know. Everybody, I think, has some kind of a memory box that they hang on to with certain things. I certainly have one. And those are things that I'll never give up because it would just break my heart to do so. And, you know, and that's what I tell people, if it's something that's really going to tear at your heart, you just need to hang on to it. But one thing I wanted to say about documents, we find a lot of personal letters. We found diaries going back to people whose families came to the Midwest in wagons. And some of that we have donated things to the Kansas Historical Society and clothing as well. So, I mean, if people hang on to things long enough, it's going to have some value to somebody else.
Although on the other hand, you could be, you know, you could be the person that downsized your parent, your last living parent, and walked away with 3 or 4 boxes full of photographs of people you don't even know. I mean, that's in our case, just
Right.
old photographs. Who are these people? And yet we hang on to them, but it's okay to let those go too.
And then if there's a family historian, and genealogy has become so popular in the last few years, you know, I would offer it first to a family historian. And then if nobody wants it and your kids don't want it and you don't know who the people are, then you can let it go. But that's been the one big regret that I've had from my clients over the years, is that they let the photographs go too soon. I had one lady call me. I had moved her to Texas, and I thought she was calling to thank me for what a wonderful job I did. And she said, I'm calling to tell all of your other clients that don't let the photographs go, keep them, and go through them after you make your move. You know, write the names of who the people are on the back. She was very sorry that she had thrown out so many of her photos. So, and that's not something, by the way, that you wanted to even address when you're going through a move. You want to do that in the dead of winter or during COVID when there's nothing else going on, because it just dredges up so many memories, some good, some not so good.
Right. And Cindy, you sent me a couple links to places that would scan photos, and I know that's something that people do after they weed through their photos and get them down to maybe 1 box or 2 boxes or bins. They can ship them to one of these companies you were talking about, right?
That's correct. Yes. Scan My Photos does exclusively like paper photographs, and they scan them, and it's all created into an index of, I mean, you would go through and separate them into events or dates or certain things. or not. I mean, if you just send them, they will do their best, but you send it off and then they send back a box, your box of photos, and then they have the flash drive.
Flash drive, yeah.
Flash drive in it, yeah. That you can access this stuff digitally. And then there are also albums of everything in a miniature form that you can have access to as well. And then there are other companies like Legacy Box, and they also do other forms of media. So 8mm film or VHS or, you know, cassettes or whatever other types of media that you have that you would like to have compiled into one digital space that would be on a DVD or a USB drive. They can do that as well.
Great. Yeah. So I'm showing you again just the list of, we will add to this as it goes on, but there's the Scan My Photo, and then you said something called Legacy Box. Of course, you can do it yourself if you have a scanner at home. And, you know, I did that for a long, long weekend, got some photos scanned. And then just that we also have a great photograph restoration company in town. And I would imagine that there are some photos that really people want to save, but maybe are in terrible shape, and it, you know, it might be worth just restoring a couple of photos to pass along to the kids or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
I have something to add, if I may. Go to the apps on your phone and you'll be surprised at what's available now. There's one called PhotoMyne, PhotoMyne. It allows you to scan multiple photos in one shot, and then it will separate them and edit them for you. And at that point, I don't know if you make it into a memory book or if you make it into a, you put it on a flash drive. I don't know what happens after that. And I don't know the quality of it either. And the other one that I found that I didn't know about is called Filmbox, and they will scan your negatives and turn them into pictures, which I think is really, really cool. I was just amazed by that because I've got so many negatives that I don't know what's on them, and now I can find out. And
yeah,
those are just two apps that I came across.
Good. Yeah, and but also to thin those out. I think Cindy, you and I were talking just the other day about how, you know, you take a roll of pictures back in the day when you took a roll, when it was actually they were printed, and you'd have 24 pictures of the same event with the same people in it, and just to try to whittle those down just to one or two.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I think anytime you can reduce the duplication, it would help to make the job easier and make the event more memorable. Keep what you can to sort of be a reflection of whatever event it is. And crummy pictures or pictures that are duplicative, just get rid of them, let them go.
John Albanian says, keep old photos, but write who the people are and where the pic was taken if you want to pass the photos on to the kids.
Right.
Pat says, home scannings are often at too low a resolution to be reproduced at good quality. Yeah, so maybe the company just thin them down and then send them to a company who could use high res scanning, maybe. Well, let's talk about private documents, because that's something that that Dave Eckert mentioned in the program in June, and by that I mean, you know, love letters, or, you know, things that maybe, depending on your family dynamics, things that maybe you don't want the kids to find, or maybe you want one child to read it but not the other, you know, just where the dynamics are. Have you ever run into a situation like that where, you know, private documents should have been destroyed and maybe weren't and caused problems? Either one of you?
I have not.
Yes, and I made an executive decision, which normally what I do is when we find personal papers, we just box them all up and then hand them over to whoever is paying the bill for our services. But several years ago, I had a family, and the mother had passed away, and the father had decided that he was going to move to Boulder, Colorado to be near his daughter. And it was a long process. We worked with him and his children for years, and there are lots of stories there. But there was one day I was working in the bedroom, and I came across a letter that the mother, who was now deceased, had written to her daughter about how unhappy she was with her because the daughter was taking the family and moving to Boulder. And I thought, what good would it be for anybody in the family to see this letter? And so I threw it away.
Mm-hmm. But better to make those decisions yourself in advance.
Right.
Yeah, that was my point. Yeah.
Right.
How can I get the sound now?
What are you
hi.
trying to do?
Just listen. I just wanted to listen.
Huh?
I just want to listen.
Okay.
Box top.
So we'll talk
I
now
can go
about
get it, but then
books.
once I get it, I can't carry it in.
How do I listen?
And let's see, maybe we can help there. So we're going to talk about books now, and because that's another source of paper. And I know, especially in this town, we love our books, and a lot of us tend to have possibly too many of them. And so we're going to talk to Mary Burchell, if Mary is there. Let's see, can we get Mary up on speaker view? Can you find her, Kathleen? Mary?
So Mary, there you go.
Now I'm there. Now am I there?
Yeah, you're there. Okay, good.
That's good to know.
So Mary, you're going to talk this afternoon about two ways to get rid of your books. The first being how to sell them, because you are very involved with the library's Friends and Foundation. And sometimes books come in that are donated that look like they might be valuable enough to sell online. And I just thought this would be something that, you know, people watching today might want to sell their valuable books themselves to get a little cash. So how would they do that?
Well, let me tell you about the Friends process first. Every book that comes in that is not dirty and spit upon or whatever, we scan. And we scan it on Amazon. And I think now we're at $7. If it's worth more than $7, we put it on Amazon. And we learned very quickly to not decide in your own head what's valuable and what isn't, because you can't ever tell. We have sold, we have sold books for $500 that have been donated. The person who puts them on Amazon checks on several used book sites and finds out what the price should be, and then they set a price. And I tell you, it is fascinating. It is not a biddable process. It's the price is set. I have far too many books when we downsized. Matter of fact, when we had our estate sale, the ladies put all the books in the library, in the garage, and it was a big oversized double garage. And she had tables out there and it was full. And I walked out there and I thought, this is really obscene. Nobody needs this many books. And I had kept quite a few myself. But I decided to try them on eBay, and it's not a difficult process at all. I choose to do it by the bidding process, which is kind of fun. I just start with a price, and I usually start fairly low because I don't really know what the book is worth. I have been amazed. Some books don't sell very well. They do sell, but not very well. But some books, I had one that was probably, I think I had found it in some garbage can or someplace. I hate to admit it, but I do look in garbage cans occasionally. And it was probably a 8-page paper. And it was a small publication published in Santa Fe, dealing with Southwestern literature. And I put it on and I started, well, you know, if anybody buys this, I'll be lucky. I'll put it on for $2. It sold for $35. And I thought, wow, I wish I had about 6 of those. Anyway, it's a very interesting process and kind of fun to do. And so I put my books on that, see if they sell. If they don't sell, then I take them down to the Dusty Bookshelf, which is another interesting place. And it's an ongoing process. I try to outguess what she's going to buy and what she won't buy. I haven't been very successful yet, but she does take unusual things. I think they sell online also, so she always checks that. But that has worked out really well for me. And then of course I donate what's left. They don't need to know that. I donate what's left then to the Friends and Foundation for their book sales. Now we have been curtailed with this COVID business on book sales, but we've started taking donations again. We just don't have the box out because we think we'll probably be overrun, because I think maybe people in staying home have gone through a lot of things.
Yeah.
But we will take them. And there are 2 ways you can do it. You can look online at this site. Let me give you the site, although it's listed in the new library reader that has just come out, the publication that you pick up at the library. But it's bit.ly/LPLFF donate. And if that doesn't suit you, the telephone, you can call Angela Hyde at 785-843-38, that's not a total number, 3833. Would that be right, Kathleen? Anyway, it's the phone number for the library, and she's at extension 149. And she will set you up an appointment, and you can donate your books that way. And we look at all of them. We get, the one thing that people tell me is that when someone has died in the family and they've been a teacher and they have a lot of textbooks, and they say, well, textbooks won't sell. Old textbooks are no good. That is not true. A lot of people buy these old textbooks. Sometimes I think the older, the better. So don't you make the decision about what books will sell and won't sell. We're happy to do that. In my list of things here, there's a cookbook collection, and we get a lot of cookbooks, and we've some of them sell really well. I don't know if you've noticed, if you're on Facebook, they have probably every day they put on a selection of, I'm going to say, 50 books, 50 different titles, and you can buy them. And they're at book sale prices, $2 for hardbacks and $1 for paperbacks. Then every now and then, Angela runs an online, Facebook, what do you call it? A Facebook sale that's live. And those are great fun. She goes through a whole bunch of books, and you put them in a comment column there on Facebook that you will buy it, and you get the books. They deliver them to you. There's the option, of course, of taking the books to places like Goodwill and Salvation Army. I don't really know what they take. I know they sell books, but I think that's fine too. I'm not in favor of throwing away books unless they're really, really bad shape. I am a librarian after all, and I just can't do that. We have little free library boxes too all around town, but a lot of people use their extra books for that. I can't think of much else for for books. The Library Friends and Foundation would be happy to have your books. Just give them a call, give Angela a call. I think Kathleen put the number up, and get in touch with them and bring it. We've made arrangements during this COVID time. We put them in quarantine out in that red box that's behind the library for, I believe, 4 days, when that's supposed to be the time when all the bad stuff dies on paper. And then we take them out and go through them. And it seems to be working quite well. And we do need donations because we need to put things on Amazon. And that's where we get our best books, is from these lovely donations that we get.
Thanks
I think
so
that's
much,
it.
Mary. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I wanted to put this document one more time up. I did talk to Dusty Bookshelf just to see what they were doing during COVID. And I talked to Holly there. She wanted to, warn people, generally you're talking about a 17% of the value of the book. And I'm assuming that means used value. If you sell them for cash, if you exchange them for store credit, it's more like 40% value. But during COVID, they are only buying books on Monday and Thursdays from 10 to 4 p.m. And there is a 2-box maximum. So, and that's different than the way it used to be. So again, we will put all this information, we will add to this sheet and format it in a way that is a little easier to read. But I just wanted to share that because I did talk to her. I think
That's
there's
good
also,
information.
there's also that idea of gifting books. I think Cindy, you and I talked about it, maybe to give a book to someone. And I did that with, I had this pretty obscene cookbook collection. And a few years ago, I just had my friends and family over and told them just to take what they wanted. I kept my favorites, of course, but that was just a fun thing to do. And so think about gifting your books too. If you've just got a ton of books and have one that you could just think of a friend that would love it, that's kind of a good feeling, a feel-good way to get rid of them. So thank you, Mary, for the information.
Thank you.
I also wanted to point out before we get to the questions that I believe the City of Lawrence, there's their books. And, of course, Lawrence has a great recycling program anyway, but I would, there's some of the thrift stores and such listed here. I would certainly call them because of COVID. But you can find just about, you can find places to recycle just about anything on this website. It's really very good. So I think maybe, unless Jerry or Cindy, you have anything to add to the discussion so far, I'm going to read some of our comments. We have a few cautionary tales coming in about the shredding business, which is why really we really want to keep you apprised of some of those live shredding events. But Gary says, I worked for a company that had sensitive documents that were supposed to have been buried by the landfill company, but later an employee of our company found documents blowing around outside the landfill. So, there are some concerns of, well, obviously environmentally, but about, sending your documents to the landfill or through the recycling program. So we'll keep you apprised of any shredding events we hear about and let you know. So I think maybe what we'll do now is I'm going to go back into gallery view from my machine anyway, my computer. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask, or if you have any issues that we haven't covered as far as your paper is concerned, just raise your hand and we'll see if we can find you quickly, and we'll unmute you and you can ask your question. And, Jerry?
Kathy, I don't think, did we talk about magazines and what to do with magazines as part of paper?
No, thank you. I actually did call, I called the Douglas County Jail. They used to really welcome magazines for the inmates, that if you wanted to donate your old magazines. They don't do that anymore. But no, if you have resources for magazines, please share.
I'm not sure with COVID if that's changed, you know, how people are feeling about it, but nursing homes, women's shelters, preschools, daycare centers, they'll cut them up and use them for crafts. Also, any place that has a waiting room, doctor's office, but I would call first and get some feedback on it. And I also wanted to mention National Geographic, because just about every home I go into has a large collection of National Geographics, thinking that they're worth a lot of money, and they're not. So that they end up, you know, being donated or recycled. So there's no reason to hang on to them thinking it's going to make you a rich person, because it's not going to happen that way.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, magazines are something we all tend to not throw away too often. So and they're heavy. You know, books are so heavy. It's kind of like China. I can't wait till we talk about China, because you put books in a box and it's really heavy to just stuff around from place to place. You just, you know, need to lighten your load. So, okay, so we'll open it up. Pat is asking, how do we forward or share this with others who aren't here? Pat, I think that's going to be a matter of just when we post the video up on the YouTube channel of the library, you can paste that link and send it to whoever you want. So anybody else have a question for?
I think Tracy Trent, did you have a question? You need to unmute.
Yeah. Well, my grandmother passed away, and my father had all of her stuff, and my father passed away, and now I've inherited both of their things. I mean, you know, a lot of their things, tons of books and tons of papers. And how do you actually decide, like, as far as family goes? Because I've got sisters and everybody else. I don't know. I don't want to get rid of things, and then some of it I don't. You know, like books, I don't even know where to start with what's important and what's not. I mean, because my father was an avid reader and I became an avid reader, and I just don't want to like get rid of things that were important to him, but nobody else seems to really. How do you dwindle down which is ones to keep and ones not to keep, or how many you should, you know, just out of family things? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, are your siblings in town or out of town?
I've got two sisters, and both, one's in town, one's out, and neither one of them were really interested in the books. But I almost feel guilty, like if I get rid of my father's books, you know. And my grandmother had tons of quilts, and some of them were her grandmother's. And again, nobody wants them because they're like, oh, we're not going to use them. But I can't seem to get rid of those because they're family quilts.
Well, those you can sell. And if they're quilts that were handmade, and
Yeah.
you can get pictures of them and put them into, you know, a little booklet for yourself, so that you, if you want to evoke the memory, you've got the picture.
Right. Okay.
Okay, but you can sell them because they take up a lot of space. And
They do, yes.
deteriorate over time. But, you know, if your sisters, if the siblings aren't interested, then, you know, and you've got the items, then it's up to you to deal with it. If you have the one that's out of town that is interested, you have to give them a deadline.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I need you to be here to take a look at these, or we can go over it on Skype or whatever, or FaceTime, and you can look at it that way. But I need your input, and then make your decision that way. Because otherwise, you're talking about now you have a home with 3 generations.
I do, yeah.
Right, and it will only get worse. So you need to pare down, keep only the things that you really love, that mean something to you.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's
Thank
hard.
you, Tracy. I'm sorry for your loss. That's a lot. You look young.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry you have to deal with that.
Sharon
yes,
has a question.
Sharon. Where's Sharon?
How do you sell things to Amazon?
Sell things to Amazon.
How do you sell books to Amazon?
Yeah, you have to set yourself up. Ooh, Mary, you want to answer that one? I'm trying to, you need to
You're
unmute.
muted, Mary.
There we
I
go.
will
There we go.
You go on Amazon, the Amazon site, and in there somewhere it will tell you how to set up an account. And that's really all you do. Now, I did
I
eBay.
have a regular account that I purchase things on. Is it the same?
No, you have to
Well, I
set up
can't tell
as
you
a
about
vendor.
Amazon.
Seller's
I imagine it's a different area. I haven't set up an Amazon account. I bet you could call Angela at the library, at the phone number that Kathleen put on, and she would tell you because she deals with
Okay.
Amazon a lot.
I've actually volunteered and done that, but you have special machines and things and I don't. The second question I had was, what do you do with slides?
Slides will be addressed next month because we are doing, I think it's, let me get back to the calendar so you can see it would be the first Thursday. The first Thursday in October will be an electronics, I think we're calling it our electronics extravaganza.
Right.
And that's when we will talk about, you know, how to get rid of all those, you know, all that old equipment that's in your, you know, the VCR, well, I can't even think of what
Right. I
for
understand.
that. And we will deal with digitizing media like tapes, you know, how to get your videotapes, your DVDs, whatever, digitized, and we'll deal with slides at that time.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And that is Downsizers Club, October 1st. So that
Okay.
will all,
Have
that
all
will be
those
about
dates.
electronics. And it just so happens the city is going to have, I hope, I mean, they've scheduled one, an electronics recycling event. One of those drive-by deals where you take your TVs or your radios or whatever, and they'll take them off your hands. So we'll have information on that next month. You're welcome.
But I would suggest before next month that you might go through your slides just for fun and get rid of all the ones that are pictures of chipmunks and maybe a pine tree or something that you have really no need to keep. I think you can, you'll be surprised how much you can pare down your slides if you do that.
We've got another question about reviewing how you can access these resource lists. So again, we will put that document I showed you on both the Retirement Bootcamp website and then the Facebook group as well. So if you're really not into Facebook, but you want the information, and then we will also email it to you unless you do not wish for us to, but we do have your email address because we sent you the Zoom link. So we will email you that resource list in the next couple of days as we complete it. Oh, here Lori says you have to sell, this is to your question about Amazon. You have to set up a seller account now on Amazon, which costs $35. It used to be free to sell books back to them. So hope that's helpful. I'm sure there's also a YouTube video or more than one. If you just type in how to sell on Amazon, I bet you'll see a lot of good information there. Is there anyone else that has a question?
Oh, it looks like Smiths have one.
Where are the
Yes.
Smiths? Oh,
Maggie.
there they are. Okay,
There we
go
go.
ahead.
As POA, what papers do I need to keep and what ones can I get rid of? Like, I've been a POA for 5 years. We sold his house, we sold his car, we changed insurances, we changed some of his investments. He's got old military records, and he has medical records that are over 5 years old, and some are from 5 years to today, and they're from different states.
Hmm.
And he's still alive?
Yes.
Do you have an attorney that you can ask the question to that won't charge you $200?
No. No.
If he's still alive, I would hang on to most of it,
Okay.
just to be on the safe side. I was power of attorney for my father, and I especially the
What's going on?
records, I would just keep it.
What?
They're gonna move a tractor in the
Thank
back.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions
Into Cornwell.
for our experts or Mary? I'm looking at everyone. I don't see.
I had just one thing to add to about the diaries or the personal information. I've seen things lately about how
Oh, that's right.
people have marked them, you know, if they wanted to keep them
Uh-huh.
because they had a lot of sentimental value, then when they pass away, they can have them in a marked envelope or something that says, you know, for destruction upon my death or something, so that they're handled that way. Or if they are of historical significance or might have some value that way, maybe that they are given to a historical society, but maybe don't get with instructions not to do anything with it until 50 years down the line, or after people who may be affected are no longer alive to deal with it. So those are some other options for the more personal items that you were talking about.
I think too, with the diaries and that sort of thing, I've written biographies and I would die to find the diary of someone that I'm writing a biography about. But it also gives you important information about what life was like in the time they were living. It's not so much that you care about their personal feelings, but it's how they lived. You know, what did you spend your money on? What kind of food did you eat? What was your transportation? That kind of stuff is so valuable when you're doing a historical document.
As a historian and as the wife of a historian, those are absolutely crucial. And you should absolutely contact the State Historical Society,
Yeah.
if not Watkins, on any diary that you have. It is a social document that should always be offered.
Yeah, I agree.
Interesting. Very good. I wanted to mention one thing I thought of too about the pictures. I have known people to, as they're scanning their photos and their families are scattered all over the country or the world, some people form private Instagram accounts or Facebook groups, just kind of like we have. Our Downsizers Club is private. And open it just to family only and post the pictures there so that everyone sort of has the same pictures and can decide whether or not they want to keep them. And that is, if you're into social media and are somewhat savvy in that way, that's a way to share photos without having to mail them or you know, hang on to them. You can scan them and put them up on some platform in private so that your family members can access them. Okay. Anybody else have a question?
Oh, there's, looks like Dave Smith.
Yes.
Oh,
I just have one small comment for the books and the quilts. I had a similar situation where I was dealing with my mother, and everybody thought I should keep everything forever. And so when we had a family reunion, I told them this is going to be disposed of. And then all of a sudden they had an interest in it. So that might help you to tell them you're going to get rid of the quilts or the books, and then they'll know they're being disposed of instead of, you know, hoping you'll just keep them for the family forever.
We also donated a quilt. It was over 100-year-old quilt to JM, which is a juvenile disease. And they took it and sold it at their auction. So some places will take them to sell at their private auctions.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Okay.
I'm sorry, Kathy, I was trying to unmute. I just have a comment about the old quilts. We had a couple that were pretty raggy, and we cut out the good spots and framed it with a picture of the person who had made the quilt, and you know, did 3 or 4 to give to grandchildren and stuff like that.
That's a great idea, Pat. Great idea. Okay. And, you know, if you have any questions in advance of next month's program on electronics, how to dispose of your electronics, feel free to email me. My email address is on the website, or post them on the Facebook group if you plan to join. And that way we can be sure that we're covering the information that you need when it comes to electronics. And if you're like me, I've got 3 tube TVs and I don't know how many stereos and stuff in the attic that it's taking up a lot of space. So feel free to send me those in advance, and because we want to make sure we can answer all your questions and have the people on who can do it. Oh, and there's my email address in the chat. So, oh yes, and you can also donate to Audio Reader for sure. Those tapes, you know, CDs, I'll have to find out what they're still accepting. I know vinyl is big. So we'll talk about that on a later date. Okay, anybody else want to ask a question or comment?
I guess I'll add, I'm looking to see if there's anybody else with a question, but we do have our weekly coffee group that is tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And if you do want to join us, put your email in the chat box and we'll send you the Zoom link.
Yeah, the coffee group is a good group of people. We meet on just for an hour on Friday morning, and we share. I mean, it's a networking group. It's I mean, the subject matter runs the gamut. I always learn at least 3 new things afterward or during. So feel free to join us. And if you want an invitation, like Kathleen said, put your email in the chat. I'd like very much to thank our guests, again, Jerry Wade and Cindy Phillips. Their contact information will be in the news or the email that we sent you and online, just in case you'd rather have someone do it all for you. But we know that a lot of people, you know, were stuck at home during COVID. Everybody's thinking about their homes, it seems, and you know, needing projects for the winter and fall. So it won't hurt to do some of this in advance. And let's try to do it before it's too late and someone else has to do it for us. So, and Virgil, thank you very much. And Kathleen, thank you very much. And if there aren't any more questions, I guess we will say goodbye.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Thank you very much
for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.